Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with his Thursday expert, the CEO of Hemlane. How you doing this morning, Dana?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
It's actually a little secret. It is not morning for you. It is early evening, late afternoon, I guess early evening, because you are coming to us all the way from the great continent of Africa. Is it the country of Kenya? I forget which country you're in.
Yeah, I'm in Kenya, Mombasa, Kenya.
Very, very cool. This is something you do every summer?
Every summer we come here. And unlike you in the South Bay, where it's a little bit warmer, we're in the fog in San Francisco. So even though it's winter here, it's still 80 degrees compared to San Francisco. And I have to say that's a good thing about being a real estate investor. Something you and I promote a lot is that you have that flexibility to move around and live other places. So we definitely try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, we did this last year a couple of times, and the Wi-Fi or internet in Kenya is amazing. It's like you're sitting next door to me. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So unlike the US, where there's a lot of regulations, for those who don't know, in Africa, they don't have any of those regulations. So you could basically put an AT&T tower up next to your house, and I don't think anyone would say anything about it. And so it was shocking to me that the internet here is better than in San Francisco, which is
It is.
which is benefit here. Yeah.
There you go. Well, hey, thank you. This is so much fun. I really appreciate the fact that these mean something to you, and we still do these even when you're out of the country. We have a cool topic. Hemlane just issued a survey, and you've actually collected the results. Let's step back and kind of paint the picture. Why did you do the survey? What was in it? And then we'll break down what the results were.
Yeah, so I'll start with right before COVID, we had a couple of kind of they were top well-known journalists in the real estate space reach out to us to say, what data do you have on COVID? So we started taking that data and presenting the numbers. And one of those journalists said, these aren't mind-blowing numbers of, all tenants defaulting on their rent. The market is tanking. No tenants are going to pay rent. That they essentially said, we're not going to report this. We need something that is much more newsworthy. And so for us, it was really important to say, we don't know everyone else's data. But what we do know is our own data, and we should start using that to report accurate numbers, because for us, our incentives are aligned to just tell you what the truth is. It's not to get a news survey out that's clickbait.
Yeah.
Our goal and interest is to make sure real estate investors are educated about what's happening, and also just analyze it, understand why something may be happening. And so we've just started, this is the first of quarterly surveys that we're going to do to really understand real estate investors, and actually more importantly, tenants, and how they are feeling based on anything that's happening, trends in the market, all the way to also understanding like consumer behavior. And so with over 17,000 rentals, plus all the applicants coming in, we said, why don't we actually use this to survey and get some insights and glimpse into what's happening across the nation. So we started this one, and really the concept and goal behind it was to understand inflation, right? We've seen stats saying, that the wages aren't increasing as quickly as inflation, right? It's between 4 to 5% versus inflation at 8, 9, 10% plus. How is that affecting tenants? Because they're usually the ones who get more cost burdened. And so really understanding what's happening. And I think even more importantly, just for everyone on this channel to know, mass market of rental properties are small mom and pop landlords like me and Michael, you back in the day before you built an empire. And with that, what's really important to note is usually when stats go out there, it's really hard to get all the data on all the small mom and pops. So they report data based on institutional investors.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to get the data. They just have to go to 5 of them.
Yeah.
Or they report data based on large property management shops, which might have different incentives. And so for us, it was really important to say, we have a consolidation because we do property management.
Mhm.
We have a consolidation of small mom and pop landlords. What are they seeing? What are their tenants seeing? And this might not be exactly what's reported in the news. So anyways, this survey is basically for us to understand inflation, what landlords are thinking with interest rates and inflation for the next year, as well as how is this impacting tenants.
Mhm.
And some of the results are sort of interesting. So
Yeah.
that's
So a couple.
basically the background on it.
Well, I
Yeah.
think first and foremost, I think this is a genius move. You kind of are sitting at the apex of mom and pop landlords, which I think is awesome. It's a obviously a unique market, a market that I really consider myself still in. It's really what one rental at a time speaks to. So kudos to you. You also, you get a big swath of the country and all income brackets being a mom and pop kind of sitting on top of that. You're just not Blackstone or BlackRock or, American Homes or whatever. And I think that's really important. I mean, because again, the big Wall Street firms make up less than 1% of single family rentals, which is mind blowing given all the negative headlines and whatnot. So I think that is
Yep.
really underserved. I think Hemlane gets you really can create unique metrics that will become a source, right? I could see you in a couple of quarters once this is seasoned, becoming that, Housing Wire, kind of survey or Zillow survey or whatever. So kudos to you for doing this. And then I just want to make sure I understand. So you have a survey, it's whatever set of questions. Do you send the same questions to a landlord, aka owner, as you might send to the 17,000 tenants, or is it kind of the same topics but different questions? Do you do one or the other or both? What is all that?
Yeah, different questions. So
Okay.
to the landlords, we send one survey asking about one, how they're thinking about rent increases. Are they more likely to increase them with inflation? Are they more likely to purchase properties, or are they thinking about selling them because the market has been said that it's at a high?
Mhm.
And we've seen that some tapering off here. That's for the landlords, so it's specific to their properties. And then on the tenant side, when we send the survey out to them, it's all about how are they impacted by rent? Did they also see increases? How is that affecting their ability to pay for groceries and
Mhm.
gas? And what are they thinking? And it's actually really interesting to hear it from both sides,
Yeah.
and then get the responses from them. And we had some kind of other categories for people to type in responses. So it was really interesting to hear from tenants on that, of what they were saying. Like, are you kidding me? You cannot believe how, affected I've been trying to live paycheck to paycheck and things like that. So really just kind of trying to get into their head and understand it without any sort of personal gain from it, more so just to share the data.
Yeah. This is awesome. Again, I think this will be a quarterly survey that is very quickly referenced commonly by Wall Street Journal and the others. So I'd be curious. The first survey is now complete. You've gathered the data. What are
Yeah.
some aha moments you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is rent increases. Let's just
Mhm.
talk about rent increases. And the reason for that is I think a lot of landlords, like ourselves, are sitting there saying, hey, inflation's going up. Usually I increase my rent between 1 to 3%, maybe like CPI. I'm somewhere in there year over year.
Mhm.
And then now that we have inflation that's through the roof, should I be raising it to like 8, 9, 10%? And so we did a survey to understand that of how they were thinking about rent. And actually, what was interesting is 49% of landlords had said that with over the past year, and these are ones who've been landlords for over 12 months. So it's not like a brand new landlord who's acquired a property and is increasing rent. These are ones who've been landlords for a 2+ years here, have said that of 49% of them, so basically half, have said they've increased their rent by over 3%.
Oh, wow.
So above what they considered inflation historically. And the number one reason, so 67% said it was to get it to market rates. But in many of those cases, what we found was that it was when the tenants were moving out, that it was their opportunity to really increase it. And so while you see that this increase, a lot of it has to do with, hey, my tenant is moving out, I'm going to take advantage to bring this up to market rate. Then 25%, so about a quarter, said, hey, I increased it, 1 to 3%. I wasn't trying to get greedy. And the primary reason for that, which you could probably guess, is they want to keep the tenants in their property. When you are a small mom and pop, having vacancy impacts you so much more significantly than if you are a large institutional where you say, hey, I can have a 5% vacancy rate. For you, it might be 100% vacancy if the tenant moves out. And so it was really interesting that a quarter of them still felt like, oh, shoot, if I raised it any more, even though we're reading the inflation numbers, it will impact me that the tenant will move out. And then 25%, so another quarter of them, and I'm rounding up because it's like 24% or whatever, but a quarter of them said they didn't raise rent at all, and it was not a standard practice to raise rent. I actually found that to be quite interesting, because if you're going to raise rent at any time during a renewal, you would assume that you would do it during the time when you see inflation hitting the highest point. And of those, of everyone, over 12% said it's just a standard practice. We never raise rents. When a tenant's in there, we're going to leave them in there. And I thought that was actually really interesting, because I'm like, well, 10 years down the road, how does that look to your numbers? So this is just unbiased, the data that we received.
So this is pretty awesome. And again, I actually did a video, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, basically saying Wall Street landlords suck. And it's because Wall Street landlords, or the big shops, right? You believe it or not, they're going to raise rent at every opportunity. Frankly, they're going to nickel and dime you on all fees, all legally fees. They're just going to get you because, again, they got to pay for the overhead somehow, right? They got a vice president and a VP and this and that. That overhead ain't cheap. And this is why mom and pop landlords are important. It's why I kind of talk to them. It's kind of who I am. And this actually makes me feel good, right? There's a lot of talk about rents going up, 10, 12%. It's not the mom and pop landlords. First and foremost, let me just tell you right now, if you're a landlord, you absolutely should take your units to market at turnover. That should be expected. If you're not doing that, that's bad management. Let's take that off the table. But as you have tenants that are paying, for the longest time, as you know, we've talked about this, I didn't raise rents. I raised rents every other year. I had to do that until King Gavin Newsom told me that it's basically against the law and I had to raise rents every year. That's what his rent control told me to do.
Yeah.
So, that the king said to do it. So we have to do it now. But yeah, I mean, that's a great practice. And I actually probably would have guessed those numbers, roughly speaking. 0.25% don't raise rents, a quarter below 3.5% at turnover. That kind of makes me feel good, but that is not the talk track that the media has. Dana, that actually shows mom and pop landlords being good people and caring about their tenants. That's not blood in the streets and, let's evict everybody and, take it all the way up. I mean, that's not going to get you any views. I mean, that's actually compassion.
Yeah, no, and that's, I think, actually, when you look at these, because in our survey, if you go to hemling.com /resources, which has this market research.
Oh, nice.
What's really interesting about it, has all the numbers and the write-up on it. We start by talking about what the news is reporting of 15% year-over-year rent increases and stuff like that. And my question is, one, is this just a vacant property people are bringing up to market rate? Or two, is this institutionals who are increasing it because they don't care? Like, where is this data coming from? Because our numbers are showing what you and I could probably guess, because we talk to landlords every day. And the news doesn't really. They're just like, great, we're going to get the data the fastest. And I don't actually think that is the small mom and pop.
It's not. No, it is not where they can get the data the fastest. Sorry to cut you off. It's where they can get the scariest headline.
Scary headline. Yeah, no,
Very
you're
different.
totally right. Totally. And I think it's institutional. And then also I think just property managers, if you're using a property manager, I would say they have more of an incentive to increase it because they would make money on the turnover as well. So it could be some of these much larger property management shops where they get the data, the nationwide ones,
I
where
guarantee
they
you.
say,
Mhm.
yeah, hey, I get a full leasing. I make more money off the property management fee if it's higher rent, and I get the leasing turnover. Yeah, the landlord doesn't get rent that month, but I get a full turnover cost, which is usually 1 month's rent. Let me increase it. But if you think about the small mom and pop, most of them are saying, hey, vacancy is terrible for me. My goal is to keep, if they're a good tenant, my primary goal is to keep them in there. And so I think, there's probably those two at play of where they're getting the data from,
Oh, no question.
which is not, mass market out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it on the landlord side for rent increases.
I think that is frankly, it's heartwarming, right? I have long thought that mom and pop landlords are in again, let's be clear. There are clearly some slumlords. Let's remove that
Yeah.
2, 3, 4%, whatever that is. Most mom and pop landlords, I've talked to thousands of them over the last 20 years, are good-hearted people that would much rather not raise rents, just keep the thing going, than be someone who's going to take you to market, 15%. It's not the mom and pop landlords. It's frankly journalists being lazy. They're calling 3
Yeah.
people. They're taking the largest number. It is not about it's about the scariest headline. And that's something we need to realize is negativity sells, negativity gets clicks. And it's fun to bash landlords, but let's be clear. If you're going to start bashing landlords, what this first question tells us, let's at least target the anger where appropriate and bash Wall Street. Let's not bash mom and pop because again, 25% don't raise rent, 25% 1 to 3, and the other 50 is only at turnover, and that's okay. So I love this first question. What else you got?
Yeah, great. So the other thing that we asked landlords is about, which is equally important to how they're looking at their current portfolio and their tenants, is what are you thinking in the next 12 months, right? So are you looking to sell your properties? Are you looking to acquire more properties? And hands down, you probably could have guessed this, but most landlords had said, hey, my real estate has been a fantastic hedge against inflation. Like, I just want to mention that.
Mm.
However, they had said they're not looking to purchase more properties this year than last year.
Oh,
They are pulling back on purchasing properties, and I believe that has to do with interest rates still
mhm.
holding out to see what happens with the market. Is the market going to go down? How quickly would it potentially flatten out,
Mhm.
or will prices reduce? And so it was mass majority of them, 68%, who said, hey, we're not going to purchase more properties. This is really interesting to me because I actually think there's a huge opportunity here. If you have fewer people in the market looking to buy, you actually might get some really good deals, right? Because I've actually seen this personally, not for myself, but others who I know who have put properties on market and said, "Oh, it's a hot market," and they're thinking,
Mm.
4, 5, 6 months ago, right before we started seeing this. Well, oh, my property, I'm going to put it at this price. I'm going to get 20% over asking, or I'm going to get asking, and then it's on the market for 2 to 3 weeks, and the buyers aren't there.
Mhm.
And so I actually think this is a good opportunity for landlords to think, hey, most people have that mindset of interest rates have gone up significantly. Now the investments don't look as good when you look at the data of the purchase price and then you account for the interest rate, which is just one variable in there. You might be able to go in with an offer and actually get something accepted that you would not have got accepted back in December
Mm.
or November of last year. And so I actually think this is interesting time, because it's, that Warren Buffett quote of be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. And
Mhm.
I think that others are fearful is what we see from this survey. And so it actually may be a fantastic opportunity. Like, find those great deals that you talk about,
Mhm.
Michael. Continue to look for those, because you might actually be surprised by 2022, the rest of it.
Yeah, what I'm telling people is kind of just that, right? For the last couple of years when it was a hot market, I said we're doing good and great deals. I believe the market has changed. I believe the market gets better for several years. And we're only doing great deals. We're only writing great offers. We're getting closing costs paid. We're getting rate buy downs. We're not writing offers at list price. And the
Hmm.
whole idea is, I think there's a lot of more FOMO from sellers coming on the market here after NAR's report yesterday. So I know I've been doing this for 20 some years. Inside that
Yeah.
wave of listings, there is some percent. I don't know what it is, 5, 10, 15, 20, no idea, but I know they're in there. There are some people that have to sell. I think a lot of this wave that is here and coming want to sell. And those are
Yeah.
very different things. Right now, we got a whole bunch of want, a whole bunch of wish pricing. My job for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years is only fishing for motivated sellers. That equals needs to sell. So I'll be writing lots of offers below asking. I will ask for closing costs because that helps my yield. I will ask for mortgage rate buy down because that helps my yield. I honestly, Dana, I don't care if interest rates are 10%. Don't care. It's one variable.
Yeah.
I just do
Just
the
one
math and
variable.
go, oh, I only can offer this. And the seller can say yes, they can counter, or they can say no, and I'll just move on to the next one. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's time to do the work. It's time to get paid for doing the work. So I'm ecstatic. I'm so excited for what we're entering.
Yeah, no, me too. And you see that in the numbers that you have all these folks, 70% of them almost from last year that were purchasing that are holding back. It's like this is a huge opportunity for you. So I couldn't agree more with that. That you can get more creative. Keep looking for properties.
Yeah.
Because it could be tomorrow, it could be in a month. That you get a great deal.
Yep. So let's remind people where they can get this report, and we'll do one question from the tenant side because I know we have a hard stop here in about 6 minutes or so. So where can they find it? And let's talk about the tenant.
Yeah, if you go to hemlane.com, you can scroll to the bottom to resources there, or you could just say /resources. And that will give you all sorts of different blog content, market research. And so you can just go there, and it's one of the top articles there on our blog.
Awesome. So what was the question maybe that you got from the tenants that maybe surprised you or was an aha moment?
Yeah, so from the tenant side, we were really looking to understand inflation and with rent increases, how that is impacting their ability to pay rent. What was really interesting is, and Michael, you know this, that if you spend over 30% of your income on rent, you're considered cost burdened. In other words, it's healthy to to have a tenant where less than 30% of their total income is spent on their rent payment. We had 75% of tenants saying they're spending more than 30%
Oh,
of their income. So this is 3/4 of tenants are spending more than 30%
yeah.
on their rent payments. And what was really interesting about it was we actually asked and dove into it a little bit further about, well, why is that? And so we expected it to just be there are rent increases. And don't get me wrong, there are rent increases. So 68.5% of tenants had said, I've had my rent increase. But then we dug down into why, and we asked why. And some of it was mobility of tenants saying, I moved into a more expensive place, or
Hmm.
I moved back to the city because I was living with my parents during COVID or
Interesting.
something like that. And then I moved back with my tenants. So it wasn't necessarily, you have to take both the landlord survey that we just went over and the tenant survey into account. It wasn't these landlords, small mom and pops being greedy and raising the rent a lot. It was actually tenants' personal choice to say, I do want to move back to a city. And as you know, Michael, in cities where rental rates are much
Yeah.
higher, tenants tend to be more cost burdened. They're not saving as much. And so that was actually really interesting to me, was the reasons why. And it wasn't necessarily small mom and pop landlords increasing the rent. It was other factors outside of
Yeah.
that.
This is so interesting because something I've termed recently, I talked about stimulus ballers. What I mean by that is
Yeah.
basically over the last couple of years, people were they were sent checks, whether it's stimmy checks, PPP loans, unemployment, extra unemployment, all of these things. And we saw some interesting behavior, right? We saw new cars go up. We saw Rolex watch. We saw just stupid things have record sales.
Yeah.
And one of them could have also been, hey, I'm feeling a little more robust. My savings looks better. Let me upgrade my residence. Now they
Yeah.
did. And oh, by the way, that's more expensive, closer to the city, extra bedroom, nice, newer built, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a cost in that. So it's interesting that a portion of the tenants made, it was a free choice that they made to put themselves in a tighter bind. It's just interesting to look at.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where it's being financially prudent, right? And saving money if you're a tenant now, and looking to buy properties. The other one that was really interesting, that was number 4, and the number of reasons why tenants did decide or why they were cost burdened, was one of them was moving into homes that were larger or had more home amenities. And we have to think that has to do with the work from home culture.
Of course.
And people saying, I'm spending more time at home, so I'm okay spending more of my income on my home because I'm here much more than I used to be. And so that was another interesting one, I think, with how things are changing and how people are viewing their home. They're also viewing it as an office and saying, number 3 was they chose not to live with roommates or family.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, they're trying to move out. They're looking to potentially move from home or have that space.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset. I don't know if it will change in the future with COVID
I don't know if it's a mindset, actually. I just think there was a saying that I had a year ago that I think this is just proving, and that is space is good, right?
Yeah.
It's an extra bedroom or a den. It's a garage. It's a backyard for all of those reasons. And it's just interesting to realize that I think that trend continues, but you're still cost burdened. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And this is why I think apartments are in trouble. I think rents are going to go down in apartments, but houses will go up.
Yeah.
Because again, space is good. So folks, if you want this survey, hemlane.com/resources. Dana, thank you very much for doing this all the way from Africa. It is 7 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock PM for you. So thank you so much. We're going to do this again in 2 weeks. You're going to still be there. Yeah.
Yes, I will be. I'll talk to you then. Thanks so much.
Take care.